Father, Mother, Creator of all that is, we thank you so much today for this healing, for this vigil to go out there to this world, for those that are loving beings who are here on this planet that are hurting inside, to stand up, to give them courage and give them hope, to know that there is a hand held out there for them, to know that there is somebody that cares. For those that are here are not meant to suffer, are not meant to struggle, are not meant to carry on the hurt and the pain inside, and that there are voices out there who will listen. There are ears out there that will listen, and there are people that are human, that have hearts, that will listen and hug you and hold you. For those that are out there that have done wrong or evil to create these situations of sex trafficking today, we ask for encouragement and hope that the good will prevail and that we will move forward in healing space in every possible way to create light and love on this earth and in this world, so we can move consciously forward collectively with one voice to bring pure love and happiness on our earth, to heal the hearts of the children and the men and the women who carry the pain, so they can create a better place for them to live in their hearts. And we thank you.
Suffering to the one of the
For those,
and for those that are in silence, hoping to not live anymore, I just want you to know that we're here. We send you love. I today offer this vigil, and I pray that every word, the right word, full of love, compassion, and encouragement and hope, comes out of every speaker that is here.
We thank you for coming together today as speakers, as visitors, as guests, as those who are informants, as those who have suffered from the past, the present, and the future, so that we can move forward for information and for healing in every possible way. And we thank you. Amen.
So Blair, would you like to introduce our first speaker? Can you hear me?
I can. Our first speaker tonight is a wonderful guy, a friend of mine. He's a journalist for the Washington Times. He's also been through his own abuse, and I'll let him do any more saying about himself, but he writes for the Washington Times community section. His name is Jerome Elam. So Jerome, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Blair. I want to welcome everyone to the World Online Vigil for Human Sex Trafficking Victims, Survivors, and their families. My name, as Blair said, is Jerome Elam. I'm a staff writer and columnist for the communities at Washington Times, and I'm also a survivor of child sex trafficking. For 12 years, I was a prisoner of a pedophile ring that trafficked me sexually. Lost in a world of pain and suffering, I was shackled with chains not of iron or steel, but of fear. According to the United Nations, 1.2 million children are trafficked each year, and 43% of all human trafficking victims were exploited sexually. The recently released 2012 United Nations Global Report on Trafficking in Persons indicates a 7% increase in the number of children trafficked for the years 2007 to 2010. The global sex tourism industry is growing at epidemic proportions, and the U.S. State Department estimates that in 2008, the trafficking of humans for purposes of sex generated $218 billion in profit. The numbers also show that each victim of sex trafficking generated an average of $23,000 in profit under the chains of modern-day slavery. That makes human trafficking more profitable than the illegal drug trade, and with an inexhaustible supply of victims internationally, the problem is only getting worse. According to investigations by the human rights group Shared Hope International, minors were sold an average of 10 to 15 times a day, 6 days a week, totaling between 9,360 and 14,040 sex acts a year. The child victims of sex trafficking range in age from infants to teens, and with each day that passes, our power to stop these atrocities dwindles unless we take action. Tonight we all join together to stand against the evil that steals our children. Starting this minute, we can use our collective voice and show the evil in this world that we will not rest until modern-day slavery is eradicated. And I can read further if we have time, or I can defer. Do we have time for me to read more, or should we go to somebody else?
I would defer and just talk about your knowledge of trafficking and all, Jerome.
Okay, you know, what I want to say about my knowledge of trafficking is, as we all know, roughly 1% of trafficking victims end up being rescued or getting out of the situation they're in. And typically what we see is that once these individuals are taken by these trafficking rings and broken down, it is extremely difficult to get them to walk away. And that's predominantly for fear. And what I can take from my own experience is that when you have death threats that are issued on a daily basis, and myself, I've seen them enacted and seen them take place, you really, you know, have your will to actually seek your freedom dwindles over time, and for some it disappears entirely. And that's why we have to keep working to try to get these victims away from the trafficking rings, because in their minds, even if they're physically distant from these individuals, they still live in fear of being scooped back up again and thrown back into the same situation all over again. I've actually been contacted by several people after my most recent article who escaped trafficking rings, and they you know, just echo that point that the fear that grips you in these situations, that your life could end at any second, or in some cases, you know, your family's lives are threatened. You just are unable to get away, and we have to keep letting these victims know that there is, you know, there is hope for them. They can get past the fear, and they can have a life where trafficking isn't a factor, or trafficking is no longer a part of their lives. So we have to all join together and find a way that we can help, and we can, you know, we can look at Ark of Hope. We can talk to Fernando. We can talk to Dan. We can talk to a lot of really wonderful people like them who can help us find a way to get these victims into a safe place and to really change the world for the better. Because each of us has that ability. If we just devote ourselves for an hour a day to this cause, we can change the world if we all just join together.
Wow. That's really good, Dan. I mean, Jerome, thank you so much. You said a little bit about your story. Can you tell people where they can read more about you?
Sure. My column that I write for the communities at Washington Times, it's called A Heart Without Compromise. And if you Google A Heart Without Compromise, or if you Google my name, Jerome, J-E-R-O-M-E, last name Elam, E-L-A-M, you should be able to get directly to my column for the communities at Washington Times. And you know, I do my best to reach out to people and really let them know that they're not alone. And I want to do that now and say that as a victim of child abuse and a victim of child sex trafficking, you're not alone. There are a lot of us out there, and we're here to support you, as well as Blair and Dan, Fernanda, and everybody else. So, you know, if you're in a situation now that you don't think you can get out of, you can do it. You have to just put one foot in front of the other, and you can get yourself away from your situation, and you can take your life back, and you can find happiness. And I am living proof that that's possible.
That's for sure, Dan, and I'm really impressed with how you've really made something of your life, and I hope that if you're a victim or a survivor of any of this, any form of sexual abuse in those ways, but especially through trafficking and that you can make it. And I'm just really thankful that Jerome could be here.
Thank you.
And you can turn to any of us, again, through Project for Healing Humanity's page on Facebook, where hopefully these guys will be available where they can answer questions if people have them. You can also, or you can type your questions in there and they'll see them later. But our next person is a man that I met. He's Dan Benedict from Florida. He's the founder of an organization called the Defenders Foundation. And he'll tell you about that. But Dan is a unique individual in that he works to rescue victims of trafficking. We've heard a lot of things. We've heard huge numbers of trafficking over the years, especially recently. And then we've heard other people that say trafficking doesn't really exist. And I think Dan would love to speak on that, because you've got two people here. Jerome saying he was part of it. And Jerome's not a young man, so this was happening years ago, correct, Jerome? Yeah.
And actually, yeah, in my experience is actually pre-internet. And so, I mean, and unfortunately, you know, as we all know, with the internet, it's really, the predators have really accelerated their ability to recruit people and just bait people away from their homes. And so it's just gotten exponentially worse with the internet. And so I'm sure Dan can tell us more, but I can't imagine the difficulties that people face now. You know, with you know, the internet and with their children on social networking, and how easily they can get lured away and just basically disappear. And what breaks my heart is, you know, for all of us, I'm sure, is when you look at all the missing persons that we see, and they have to be someplace, and human trafficking, I think, swallows up so many people. That we really have to find a way to stop it. And I'm just thankful for everybody that's here tonight and for their passion and their dedication to make a change in this world and to really, you know, bring people out of the darkness into the light.
Amen. There you go. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jerome. So, Dan, like I said, he's the founder of the Defenders Foundation. So if you want to jump right in and speak, and you can just have the floor.
All right, I'll do so. Can you hear me okay out there?
We can.
Excellent. Well, as you said, I'm Dan Benedict. I'm the founder of the Defender Foundation. We're an anti-human trafficking non-governmental organization. You heard a lot of really frightening statistics from Jerome, and it's just amazing how many people just they get overwhelmed by that. They have a hard time believing it, but they go out there and they do their own research, and all of a sudden they find out that this is exactly what they're talking about. We have situations. I've been to law enforcement seminars where at the beginning of the seminar, most of the officers are like, "Well, it's just drugs," or you know, that's why they're there. It's just runaways, and I can't find human trafficking victims. But I have found from a non-law enforcement capacity that if you just do a little digging, they're like sand out there. It's overwhelming how many trafficking victims are out there. Last year in the Department of Justice website, you'll see that there's about 246,000 missing children in the U.S. alone. Now, they're saying it behind closed doors. They believe up to 70% of our runaways from foster care system in the U.S. are being sold into trafficking. They believe a quarter to half of those are possibly being sold out of our country even. And this is frightening stuff. I go to the law enforcement seminars where they'll talk cases there, but you're not seeing them out in the press, even though they're public. We had a teenager in Columbia High School here in Florida that was purposely targeted by a trafficking group to be sold through Mexico. By the grace of God, she was stopped at a truck stop in the back of a van and rescued. So the thing is, most people don't understand how easy it is to get these children. Most major cities, a trafficker will approach a child easily within 24 hours, but usually a lot less than that. It's as easy as when they get off the bus stop, hey, you know, you just get in town, And they know the look. You know, I was just dropping a buddy of mine off, and you know, we're having a party out at the beach, or you know, at the lake, or wherever. You can get something to eat and catch a shower. You know, crash for the night if you want. What do you say? And they're gone. They do it. They've approached a kid in an airport here, not in Florida, but up in New Jersey, and was able to lure her away just by a party at the beach in Miami. Hey, my boyfriend will buy you a ticket. Let me call him. And she was on her way to boarding school. Yep, they got her. And it took quite a bit for her to get away. She was even picked up in Miami for prostitution, and was able to get a call to her mother. And even the intake officer on the sheet had filled in her correct age, because she blurted that out and then remembered she was supposed to give her cover story, or her, you know, parents would be threatened or whatever else, and gave the correct age. So it actually has it crossed out and then the second age put in. When she called her parent, this person, her mother, was very familiar with law enforcement from her father, and said, I need to call the intake officer immediately. Called the jail, told him, you have a minor in your facility. Please do not let her, sure, during shift change. So 45 minutes later, that girl was bailed out, and it took another 6 months for her to be rescued. And they transferred her up to New York City, where she was on the streets for 6 more months. So we're talking about a network. We have an organized network with a multi-billion-dollar industry. We're talking about something that is so organized that they can threaten a girl who might have been transferred, not one of our domestic victims, but one of our foreign victims that actually comes in through our ports of Miami, Baltimore, San Diego, Seattle. There are victims coming in via Russian organized crime. When I say Russian organized crime, it's a lot of the Slavic community. These girls are 60 to a container load, and they're drugged in there for the journey. They didn't ask to be smuggled into the U.S. Their parents were fooled by fake school opportunities, fake job opportunities, things of this nature, and same as they do here in the U.S., fake modeling and talent opportunities. These girls are trafficked up the East and West Coast, and it's just amazing. This is all going on in our so-called land of the free, and then we turn out to the global problem, you know, which it is a network. We have victims being transferred all over the world, not just all over a single country. And if they get too hot in one area, or they think that they might, you know, be a problem, they get transferred somewhere else. And I mean, they've been transferred back and forth from Australia and everywhere else. So it's kind of a crazy network where we have someone that can be threatened here in the U.S. by them looking at her employment application or her application for school, calling their compatriots in Romania, and then they'll go to their aunt's house, who's listed as a reference on this, take a picture of the front door, and come back and go, isn't this your aunt's house? You know, she can take your place if you give us any more problems. These victims are not flooding to law enforcement. There has to be a bridge somehow. They've been trained not to. They have been threatened not to. And here we have a situation where if you're transporting victims down a highway, because they're being transported every way you can think of, by air, land, and sea. But if you get stopped with 3 girls in your car, and they keep their head down and keep to their story like they're told because their family's threatened or whatever else pressure they're under, nothing's really going to happen. That officer might know that something's wrong, but he can't put his finger on it. But if he had 3 Ks of coke in the car, cocaine or other drugs, he's going to jail. There's no question about it. Trafficking is just easier. There's not enough risk versus the reward of the traffickers. We've had many drug traffickers turning over to trafficking because it's easier. And here in the state of Florida, if you hunt a lobster out of season and take one, you're going to have your dive gear confiscated, you're going to have your boat confiscated, the trailer, and the truck that bought it there. Yet a child is nothing. If you get caught using an underage prostitute, you're going to get a $500 fine, and you get to go to John School to remove that misdemeanor off your record, because you know you can't. No one can prove that you knew that it was a child, or you knew that it was unwilling, and this other type of stuff. There's so much that we need to change a lot of laws to make this harder. We need to put the onus on the users, on the Johns, that if you use a prostitute, you may very well be using a trafficking victim, and you are taking that risk that you're going to catch a felony, and we need some sort of felony prosecution so that they will convict against these traffickers, because they have no, why would they testify against dangerous people when they can pay $500 and go back to their family? We need so much more on the penalty sides, and that's part of what the Defender Foundation does. We do have two different sides. We have a public chapter, which is very volunteer oriented. This is a lot more of an organization. Instead of just talking about how bad we feel, we want to move to that next level. Now let's do something about it. So our volunteers, they work with the local shelters. They raise toiletry items. They raise clothing, food, all these things that they need at the human trafficking specific shelters. We also have a legislative team, and they're working to change those laws. I have a bunch of legal interns, some very concerned people that work with different representatives, because we do need to make strides in that. Now, federal laws, they are starting to make strides finally. We need these states to catch up, and there's a couple states that have done a lot lately. California and Washington State just passed some really good legislation recently. So we have people passing out brochures. We have people educating at-risk students and detention programs. We have all that needs to be done and more. And we have people that give classes to Slavic missionary Bible students before they go over to a lot of these ground zeros in Eastern Europe. People are afraid to speak against trafficking there because Russian mafia owns about 80% of the banking institutions, and it's a very real danger to even pass out a brochure. Now, then there's my side. I'm the director of the SHIELD teams. What a SHIELD team is some serious characters. We have a contact team, which is all females. And here stateside, they're the only ones that are around the victims. They initiate contact. They're within the entire step of the way. A victim is never left alone with anyone, much less a male member of the SHIELD team. But they stay with until we get them to a safe shelter. And then the security team side, they have a couple different elements. I can't really go too much into the structure without giving away trade secrets to bad guys, but they have a goal of being there in 5 seconds if there's a problem, and they will explain the new rules of life to anyone that might want to stop this person. We do work with law enforcement. We have agreements with Homeland Security in place and several different law enforcement agencies that when we go out, that they will be part of our operations. And here in the States, we have to swallow our pride a little bit, because we know if things get out of hand or start to look dangerous, law enforcement's going to take over, and then we're going to be their backup. We have different ways for them to reach out to us. Now, overseas, we do also rescue overseas. We've been into Nicaragua. We've been into, well, that's more of a support of the existing shelters and of that nature, but we've also been to Dominican Republic and done rescues there. Overseas is more probably what most people think of a rescue. There we can send in people and get people out. And it's amazing how much easier it is to rescue overseas than it is to rescue here. So that's an interesting thing. Now, I don't want to be cynical about it, but our job is to get these victims away from captivity to a caring shelter where their real rescue is going to happen. A lot of them have drug addictions, different types of things, that's, sexually transmitted diseases that need to be addressed. And what we really find is that a lot of these victims, they don't care about themselves. If they've been into it for any length of time, they've been beaten down, they have no self-worth at all. We can't make this about them. We can't say you don't deserve this, or you need to do this for yourself, or you can't do this, or no, you can't go back to the streets. It has to be about someone else. You're going to have to help us. You need to testify against this person, even though you say he loves you and he's your boyfriend, because there are other girls out there that don't deserve this. You have to make it about someone else. You could lead the way for other people not to have to experience what you experienced, because if you put it on them, they really don't care. later they can start getting that self-worth and building their self-respect back. But in the meantime, a lot of times we have an aftercare team. We don't just drop them off to shelter and that's it. But we do have an aftercare team that follows up for different type of services as well. And they report to me heavily that seems to be the best way we're going to do it. Now, it's not just girls, it's boys. There was a couple Haitian boys that we got into an orphanage as well. We helped. Another minister picked them up, and that was, there's children of all ages and sexes being taken for different purposes. The thing that we also need to focus on, is what I focus on, is when I talk about trafficking, I talk about the darker sides of the things I've seen. We're just getting started, and I'm not saying we're the experts at this. We've done 13 rescue operations so far. 11 of those were successful. A total of 16 victims were rescued so far, and the youngest ones were 12 years old. And that's both here and overseas. Our last rescue was actually in San Diego, California. So I talk about these things about trafficking, but I also hold men accountable. I have what I call my be a man speech, and I have things in my past that I want to go into right now, but horribly ashamed of. And most groups I talk to, every third woman has been sexually abused. So where's the statistic on us men? And there would not be such a huge problem in this industry if there wasn't such a huge demand for it. And unfortunately, even though there's female madams and there's former victims that now are victimizers with controlling the girls, men is the driving force behind this, and we have to own up to that. That's true. It has to be a thing. I talk about, and I connect the dots between the modern day sex industry, from the porn industry, the crime families that started it, to how the strip clubs are put in. You can look all this up online. It's pretty easy. Then you go into how it's all connected, because you can look at those same crime families and see they're involved in human trafficking. And now in the U.S. alone, with the average age of just fell to 13 to 14. If you are a man and you're involving yourself in the modern day sex industry, you're involving yourself in child rape. There's no other way around it. And It's time for us men to stand up and be men again, because I believe that men have natural mandates to be defenders and protectors, and that is something that we need to stand up at this time to be men again. And even if someone that has a past like mine, or other people that think they have things, or maybe they have a victim, or maybe they're heading to it, it's time to wake up and stop, that this can't happen anymore, and be a man again. And to this end, we are partnering with whoever we can. So we just partnered with Joy International. They've been rescuing for over 30 years. They just rescued 125 girls so far this year in India. They have operations all over the Southeast Asia. We're going to South America. We're starting 10 chapters in the U.S. just so we'll have a SHIELD team to bracket the country. We're going to do whatever we can. So I could use everyone's help that can get my men out there, my men and women. You can go to defenderfoundation.org to look up more information on that. But wherever you're at, whoever you're with, get behind someone. Any of these people can tell you that it's time to do something. We're on a war footing. It's about our children. It's not just another charity that you're going to help. It's not about that you're a good person, or you might go to church, or you might do this. This is war. It's a war on our children, and we need to fight back. No one has an excuse to sit down on this one. Thank you.
There you go, Dan. Well, thank you so much for being there and sharing that. And I want to tell people that this is all happening. This vigil is having to allow people only a certain amount of time to speak, but we're hoping that we can have some other videos where people are going to ask questions, where each individual person that you see here, Dan and Jerome, can have their separate times to be able to answer questions, hopefully, and where we can say some more. But right now, with the vigil, we're concentrating a lot on the victims. At least we're trying to, so that we can lift them up in prayer, meditation, in whatever sorts of ways. And you've all heard that from these two gentlemen just how real the situation is. And I believe the United Nations just came out with a report today or yesterday, or on the 12th, whatever it was, but about the real numbers of trafficking victims, and they did the report in a great way, in that they pulled the numbers and percentages from victims that had actually been rescued, people that had actually been through it. And I'm not going to attempt to quote a bunch of numbers from that, but it's really phenomenal. You can find it online. And on this video, once it's on YouTube, we'll put a link to that so that you can see those numbers. We'll put links to the websites for each of the gentlemen you've seen and for my own. I'm Blair Corbett. I'm with Ark of Hope for Children. I also work a lot with Fernanda, who's with Project for Healing Humanity. And like I said, we'll have the links there, but Fernanda mentioned something earlier that's really pretty phenomenal, and I was really glad that the United Nations report just came out today, because they, I believe, did the report based on roughly 55,000 rescued individuals of trafficking, of all forms of trafficking. And they found out, yes, that the vast majority are women, but I believe it was 59% were women. And a decent amount were men. Of those people, I believe they said that there's a total right now of 27 point something, we'll just say 28 million victims out there right now, by their estimations. Of those 28 million victims, if 10% of those are men, okay, that's what, 2.8 or 2.8 million are boys, because I said 10% are boys. This is one I want to challenge everybody with, and we've challenged people with quite a bit lately, is, you know, what about the boys? As Fernanda tried to bring, as Dan had mentioned briefly, you see now with Jerome here. Jerome was a victim before this was a big, before it had people's attention, and people don't want to talk about too many aspects of this. They don't want to think about that boys are victims. They don't want to think about that the men that they see that are homeless and the ladies that see are homeless on the streets, how did they get there? So many of them were victimized people. And those, you're the ones we want to lift up today. The ones that have been through trafficking in any sort of way as far as it relates to sexual abuse. It is something that is not, you cannot go in and just rescue a person. Perhaps Dan's organization, Defender Foundation, can find you. Perhaps you're going to be willing to go and get away. Once you're rescued, you're not.
Can you hear Blair? Can you hear us? Hello? Blair?
Hello? I'm here.
Can you hear us?
It died. Are you
Okay.
guys still here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we'll just pick it back up. I'm sorry. Something happened. An internet glitch. But anyhow, you're not going to be okay 2 weeks later. I've talked to victims. Ark of Hope for Children has quietly, we'll say, been there for victims all over online, and in a very unique kind of a fashion. We've made ourselves available. I'm sorry, my picture looks like I have jaundice, but phenomenal for the last it started about 5 years ago, where victims of trafficking had started finding us. And it was really hard at first to believe that this really goes on in our society. But it does. It goes on in America like crazy, constantly, all the time. I think Jerome or Dan mentioned the East and the West Coast. You know what? It's happening in cities and small towns all over the country. You don't have to live anywhere near the coast. There are some major hubs for trafficking within the Midwest, within all over this country. I listened to a gentleman from a small town near us talk about how just because they're in Midland, Florida, they don't think that there's victims there and that they need to worry, but they do. Even in your cities of 100,000 people or less, you could have easily 100 victims or more that people won't even recognize. We need to learn how to recognize the victims. We need to recognize that it's going to take years of help for them to get over what you're going through. And you know what? What's cool, if you're a victim or survivor, there's a lot of us out here now that do understand that. I know for Jerome and myself, we spend hours and hours helping different victims, whether male or female, online. It's a pretty cool way to do that because you don't have to be face-to-face, and you don't have some of that shame factor and some of that going on. We encourage you to get whatever professional help that you can get as well. But I want you to know that there's people here for you all over Facebook and other places like that. Ark of Hope for Children has just developed a new website for victims of all sorts, but especially of abuses. And that site is called removingchains.org. You can find people there, a growing number of people that can help. But we're also trying to build a place for victims where they can be brought by an organization like Dan's. Dan sort of inspired that to happen because I really didn't understand that the problem was as big as it is. But there was the number, which I doubt is still true now, but that there were only about 150 beds available for victims of trafficking in the U.S. There's sure not that many more beds available right now. So we're going to build a place here in the southeast area in Florida, and hopefully places like Dan will bring these people to us, and we're going to be committed to them whether they're 4 years old or they're 25 years old. So that's going to be happening, but you'd find something really interesting. We're in an online fundraiser to get that place built, and we find that there's more interest, unfortunately, in saving just about every animal under the sun than there is for providing homes for these types of children. So we want to encourage you all. This is what this is all about. This is real. It's really happening. There are thousands and thousands of victims within the United States.
Blair,
Arguably, yes.
before, because we know we're running out of time, but I would like to find out just in short version. I know this is a theme that we might have different episodes for. We need to really dedicate time to this, but if we could at least let the community know what are the signs to how do you recognize, for example, the boys that might be involved in sex trafficking when you see them on the streets where pimped. I mean, we're more familiar of hearing about the signs when a girl is being pimped, right? But we don't know much about the boys. So I was wondering, I would like to start with Dan, because we don't have too much time, and then with Jerome, and then with you. If you can give us an idea, because we as a community have to have our eyes open and just be aware. We have to know. I encourage everyone to just get involved and see. Pay attention about the boys that are around you. What is going on with them? So Dan or Blair, you could start and then pass it on to Jerome, and then Blair. It's up to you. But if we can, in a short version, kind of give just an idea of what to look for.
Go for it, Dan.
Okay, just a real quick rundown list of things that we have seen and read as well. Most trafficking victims are trained to look like everybody else, but you can see them, and they have been seen in clubs. Here in even South Florida, you'll notice that they will be all walked to the bathroom at the same time. Even though they look like young women who should be able to wander around on their own. They'll have a handler with them. He may, depending on the club, be wearing a suit or whatever, but he'll be outside the bathroom, and sometimes there'll be a woman with them as well. if you're a service or repair person and you service a house, you'll notice things like locks on the outside of the doors. Outside, you'll see bars on the outside of the windows, or maybe they'll be plywooded over. You'll see a lot of fast food wrappers. These girls aren't taken out to eat, and most traffickers don't like to cook. You'll see a few hangers in the closets, but most of their stuff, all their personal possessions, can fit into a backpack. Usually there's not even a full bed. It'll be a mattress on the floor. There'll be things around the bed like what are called tokens. These will be like poker chips, marbles, playing cards. These victims are not allowed to keep money. The users will pay the trafficker for a token, and he takes the token back to the girl. Or you might see a tote list on the side of the bed. There's so many things.
And for the boys?
The boys, it's a lot of the same thing, truthfully. Sometimes you just look for, like we've noticed when we went to the Dominican Republic, there's just a ton of really old grandfather-looking gentlemen, and they'll be walking with a 4-year-old that we know is not their grandson, okay? Sometimes it doesn't match. Here in the U.S., it's hard, and it's hard even overseas to look, well, what kind of capacity is this person? Does he know them? Does he know the family? Is he what? We don't know, and that's why it's so hard to really know what's going on. But the boys are the same thing. There are what's called rolling brothels here in the States and overseas, and what they do is they'll come in, they'll set up, they'll be there for a night, maybe 2 nights. It can be a trailer in the woods, it can be a house. You can see people outside to go in. They'll have a small waiting room inside, but you see a lot of different cars pulling up. It might be drugs, but it could also be trafficking victims. If you notice that there's kids taken out, they don't look around. Most of them look down. They don't meet people's eyes. These are all things. They will take these people and shop them in the mall, by the way, to make them presentable. They're out there with you everywhere. It could be in your medical clinic. It could be in a hospital. And you have to be able to separate them to see what's going on. A lot of times they will still deny it.
I think that what's happening is that in my opinion, we need to recognize that there is an issue with the boys. We don't usually talk about that too. And when we think about sex trafficking, the first thing that comes to mind is the girls being trafficked only. And that's probably, I don't know, Jerome, you're into research. I don't know, a lot of research has been done on also like recognizing signs. I mean, turn down sex rings for boys. I mean, how is that going?
It's slow. I mean, it's very slow, like Dan was saying. I mean, this has been going on for such a long time, and we're playing catch-up, and I'm sure Dan feels that way all the time. We're trying to play catch-up because these networks have been so well established, and they're so good at what they do. I mean, these are the sharks that live on land 24/7. They are predators that are just so skilled at what they do that we have to teach ourselves to look for signs. I mean, from my own experience, I went to a doctor with 3 broken ribs and tried to say something because, I had done something wrong and made the wrong person mad or whatever. And I tried to say something and I wasn't listened to. I mean, I was dismissed and I ended up with worse injuries than that. So we have to trust our guts. When we feel something's not right, we have to dig deeper. We can't just, pass by and keep walking. We have to all open our eyes to what's around us because Dan and Blair will tell everybody, like Blair said, it's all around us. We just have to learn to look for the signs of what's going on. And, you have to take an interest in the community around you, and you have to really delve into the well of humanity that's within you to really help these kids, these girls, these boys, women, men, whoever, let them know that there is hope for them. Because the thing that really is heartbreaking, I know for all of us here, is that even if you physically remove a victim from the environment, they're still not free. The chains are still on. And it takes such a long time and such hard work. It took me 44 years to talk about what happened to me. And that's with 20 years of therapy. And that's, and And when I wrote my article about what happened to me, I was physically ill for the entire time that I wrote about my past. And it really was difficult. But you know what? And I know we all feel this way. When I hear from victims or survivors that I reached out and touched them, that makes my life feel worthwhile. It gives my sense of purpose validation. And I will not stop until my last breath expires trying to help these people get away from this environment and realize that when they look in the mirror, they should not see the evil that was placed upon them. They need to find the beauty that's inside them that's been hidden for so long, and it just takes the encouragement to help bring that out so they can see it and realize. And it doesn't matter if you're 20, 40, 60, you can have a quality of life after an experience like this that gives you such peace and happiness that pain and suffering ever past will fade. It will fade on a daily basis. But in order to do that, you've got to put one foot in front of the other in the path to getting away from this environment, and just not look back. Just turn off your try to evade your fear and just get away. And I will guarantee you that you will find happiness in this life. It will come to you.
Excellent, Jerome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Jerome, that what you went through and how you see life now, it's an inspiration for everyone. And I wanted to see, before we close, because there's so much to talk about, and see if you will be willing and committed to come back and have another talk. And I think we're going to probably extend it to 3 or 4. Dan, will you agree to that?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, Jerome too, and Blair, I know you're in, right?
Yes.
So yeah, because I would like to close with something positive, because it's pretty heavy with what you said. So it's food for thought, and then for Sherry to close with a prayer, and then when we set the date for the next one, we will probably announce it in advance. And it will be definitely before February 10th, which is the next Vigil. So
I just have to commend you guys out there and everybody else who's out there. You guys are like angels coming down, like superheroes, man. I tell you, it's amazing. And I know that since you've gone through so much in the past and so much pain, it makes it, you have such a huge heart to go out there and help other people, because once you have been affected and you've gone through that healing, you want nothing else but to have other people heal. And that is just the most beautiful thing in the whole wide world. And if we can start gathering more and more people together, once we start telling our stories, as soon as you start breaking out and you're able to, through that therapy, tell your story and you voice it, you write it on paper first, and then you say just one sentence of it, and then the next day or 2 weeks later or 2 months later, you just say another sentence of it. You just start that healing process, and it's just great. And just to have Dan and what you do too, I just have to commend you. I mean, all of you, and Blair too. I know, it's amazing. So I just want to thank you guys, because there's so much out there, and just people need to be aware, and people have this. Some of us have no clue what's going on, like you said. I mean, I know so many people who save the animals all over the place, and we need to save our kids. It's time. So thank you. Yes, I will.
Yeah,
we'll say a little prayer.
But before that, I wanted to see if anybody wants to reach them. Blair, they can contact you at Ark of Hope for Children, right? And
right.
Jerome, you would like to also to post your Facebook page, is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Right, and Dan, through the website, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we will definitely post that, and
you'll probably put it on the video
yes.
too, I bet, because Blair is very good at that. Thank you, Blair. Okay, so are we going to do a little meditation for everybody, or a prayer? Is that what we want to do for those
whatever comes? Yeah,
whatever comes. Okay.
So
should we put a little music on?
That's okay.
We're good. We don't need the music. All right. So. Father, Mother. Well, you know what? Actually, what I'd like to do right now is just for those who are here, just to take a big, deep breath in and to breathe in anything that is goodness that's out there and to breathe out anything that does not belong as hard as you can and just release it out of your body. Just like this. 1, 2, 3. And we'll do this one more time together. One big breath in for good luck for yourself and for others. 1, 2, ready. To breathe out what does not serve you in your body. Because our cells hold on to every single thing within our lives. From the very moment that we are born to the very moment right now. Whatever happens to us, our cells will remember. And if it is pain and agony, if it is sadness, it will stay there and it will manifest within your body on every possible level. But then what else will happen is the energy within your body will begin to manifest that pain and that agony at whatever stage it happened to you. And it will ripple out within your body, just like a ripple within the puddles and just like the waves within the ocean. And it will manifest up and down and all around. And if you do not clear these channels, you will always be blocked. Because in order to move forward and to heal, you must awaken what happens within through therapy, through meditation, through health, through awareness, through friendships, and through helping others. That is the way to heal. It's not an easy road, and not everybody wants to do it because it's hard to do. And the hardest part is taking the first step. And then taking that second step is just as difficult. Because that energy that is agonizing and weighing on your shoulders in every possible way is telling you to stop and slow down. And know it because it's not right. But guess what? There is an amazing divine energy that is out there that is loving and passive and beautiful and nurturing. And when you awaken this, it will gobble up all of those ugly, nasty thoughts that are within you. And you will begin to shine and you will find happiness. This happiness will guide you. Because once you find it, it's lost within you. And you begin to unwrap it like a present. And it will divinely begin to process within your body and dissolve the other cells. And this is how the healing begins. And whether you are a baby or a child or a teenager or a young adult and you have been affected by this, it will begin to release. And all those negative little cells will begin to find light. The light of why you came here on this earth, to become who you are. To begin to create, to become the beautiful persons you are inside. So this is very, very important. In order to help yourself to find that light, you need to unveil who it is and know that God brought you into this world to become the most magnificent person that you could possibly ever be, and to shed the layers of suffering and of pain. In that, with the guidance of those who are around you, and with the love that surrounds you, you have to know that taking that first and second step will help you to become the true amazing and magnificent person you are meant to be in this world. And with those loving thoughts, we thank you for being here today and taking part of this amazing, amazing workshop, this vigil that's here for you, this vigil that is here for those who have been affected. And we hope and pray that as we band together with all those that care, with the angels on this earth, with all these wonderful people, that we can move forward and make this world a better place. And we thank you.
Thank you.